Twitch or YouTube as well.
Sweet. Awesome.
All right, we're already running live.
Great. Sorry.
All right, so Jackie, I will count you in for the start of the actual recording.
Mm-hmm.
And counting in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, listeners and viewers. It's Jackie McGriff, your host on today's Representation in Cinema episode for another deep dive into the film Sinners. That's right, this is part 2 of our talk on Sinners. So if you didn't listen to the first episode, we highly recommend listening and or watching that one on our website at ourvoicesproject.com/podcast or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, Spotify, Apple, all of them. We're calling it our Black as You Know What or Black AF episode because it had to be us breaking this film down. Thanks again to Ryan Coogler, the team at Proximity Media, and cast and crew for this one. This film is truly a gift. Before we get into today's episode, we want to remind folks that we are a production company. That's Our Voices Project. And you can find out more about our films on our website at ourvoicesproject.com. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, you can email us at info@ourvoicesproject.com. Please note that while we welcome all, we prioritize hearing from Black, Brown, and Indigenous folks, especially since this podcast is about highlighting the films, centering and telling authentic and multifaceted stories of Black, Brown, and Native peoples. Now, there's a lot to cover with this film, so we're going to quickly introduce our guests and then head right into the discussion. So here in the studio, let us start first and foremost with Coco Ray David, who is a New York-based visual artist, curator, photographer, award-winning filmmaker, I know that's right, and business owner of By Coco Ray LLC and The Perp. Welcome, Coco.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bree. Bree is a published author, communications professional, and model who blends creativity and connection in everything she does. With a background in media, public relations, and storytelling, she's passionate about using her voice and presence to inspire and uplift others. Welcome, Bree.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
All right. So next up, we have someone who is not new to the podcast. She was on our last installation of our Sinners saga, I guess, or series, whatever. Saga. This is a saga. It's definitely a saga. Katara Poland is a published author, editor, copywriter, poet, speaker, founder and CEO of Love for Words, and the creator of National Black Authors Day. Again, happy to have you back here, Katara.
Thanks for having me.
We also have Ernest Davis, who is also the first time on the podcast. I can't believe it's actually the first time. I feel like we talk about movies all the time. Yeah. We definitely do. So we're going to definitely have to have you back, Ernest. Yep. So Ernest Davis is a photo-based artist and curator born and raised in South Los Angeles with roots in Southern Louisiana. Her practice is spurred by her curiosity about process, one's psychological nature, and the meaningful connections made possible through art when individual complexities are acknowledged and welcomed. Welcome to the podcast, Ernest.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Happy to have you. All right. So now we also have people joining us remotely. All right. So first and foremost, back to the podcast, who was also on our last podcast of the Sinner Saga, now we're calling it, is DJ Tego, a Raleigh-based DJ who seeks to bring community together through music and dance blended with collective education rooted in history and liberation-based politics. Welcome back to the podcast, DJ.
Happy to be back.
Yeah. And then we have 2 more newcomers to the podcast. We also have joining us remotely Heather Thompson, who is a psychology student and mother. Welcome to the podcast, Heather.
Hey.
And last but certainly not least, we have Aisha, who is a filmmaker. We're happy to see and have a fellow filmmaker also joining us on the podcast. Welcome, Aisha.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. So now that we've got all the introductions, it's on to the film. For our listeners and viewers, Sinners is a horror adventure film written and directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan playing twin brothers Smoke and Stack, returning to their home in the Mississippi Delta in 1932 to start a juke joint. In reuniting with family, friends, and neighbors, they gather a crew of entertainers, one of them being their younger cousin, Sammy, played by newcomer Miles Canton, who has an incredible talent that not only brings people together, but also attracts an evil force that dares to rip all of that apart. The film also stars Wunmi Mosaku, who you may know from Loki or the series that should have never been canceled, Argue with Your Mama, Lovecraft Country. Yes.
That talk.
Exactly. Omar Miller, Delroy Lindo, and Haley Steinfeld. So, if you haven't watched the film already, you can watch it now in theaters. I believe it is back in IMAX as of today. Is it in select theaters though?
Yes.
Okay.
very select.
See,
Yeah.
not fair at all.
See,
Not
I
fair at all.
Right.
I was ready.
I was ready.
However much IMAX is, I was
Like-
going to pay it this time.
Listen.
Like, I was
They're-
so ready.
They're only behind. I think it's like a 85 million.
85.
Yeah, 85 million, right? To reach, what is it? Like, I think
300 billion.
300, yeah, which would move it past Avatar at
Right.
this point. So we can do it, but you got to bring it back into more theaters,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway, if you haven't watched the film already, please, we highly recommend you watching it, especially if you can find an IMAX theater near you. But from here on out, we'll be discussing the film in depth, so spoilers ahead. And as always, you have been warned. Okay, so the first thing that we usually ask folks, and of course, we have a few people who joined us the last time. So my question to you, this is going to be a two-parter. My question to you is going to be, what has this film meant to you? And, for the new people on the podcast, feel free to also answer that. But I also want to know what your reaction was when you first watched the film. The credits are rolling. What's going on through your head? Coco, I'll start with you.
I'm thinking. I had like a artist existential crisis because I was just like, oh my gosh, and I was really inspired. Like I can't stop talking about it. Not only just from like,
What?
I'm sorry I have to do this because I know you're not my professor anymore. I'm your colleague, so.
Oh.
Sorry. No, but a part of the process of like making art and like sitting on it and kind of like research and everything, like this was like to me, a master's level of like filmmaking. And for me, it was very inspiring. Like storytelling, it brought back, I feel like it just grounded me to myself. It made me think about my younger self, reading, listening to books, storytelling, visual storytelling, especially as a visual artist, like how to move a story. For me, it brought me back to when I was living in Charleston, like working down in on plantations and the slave dwellings and thinking about the history with that, and even seeing, in the movie Slave Dwellings, like the accuracy of like folks living on top of each other in slave dwellings and stuff like that. And then it made me think about being from Rochester, like I said earlier, my beef with not having IMAX here for us to see it. I'm like, we're Rochester. Like, how the heck you're breaking down film, you're talking about the process and everything. And I feel like sometimes we always get like the bitter end of the stick with stuff like that. I mean, I know there'll be other things, but it's like it inspired me to my core, for sure. And it gave me a lot of mixed emotions, but it made me feel. That was something I like about it. It made me feel.
Bree, how about you?
Yeah, I think I was in awe after, just stunned. I love vampires. I grew up Twilight. I was a Twilight girl. I was a hard Twilight girl. And that love of vampires, whenever I can see that kind of lore, I love it. So to see it so enriched in history and education, right? So teaching us small things like the idea that they were paying with slave money still, that start that we were supposed to have gotten, we never really got. And when you know that part of your history, you start to understand so much of why things are the way they are now, why your family is why they are the way they are now. And it just makes things make sense. So that educational part of it all and just learning so much, just from the little bit of time in the movies, I feel like I'm always antsy. I'm not a huge movie person. I like movies, but it's sometimes I'm like, I'm ready to get out the theater though. It's a little cold, something else could be going on. There was not 1 second that I wanted to get out my seat or that I wanted the story to be done telling itself. And I think it really took so many chances in the education and including things, the small details that were included to make sure it was really representative of that time. And also represented so many different cultures. Like, we got a lot of Black culture, but we also got some snippets of other marginalized folks. And it was so nice to have a movie that I love that we were such a heavy focus, because during that time our struggle was so monumental, but the fact that we also got to see other pieces of struggle as well was great.
Katara, what has this film meant to you?
Yes, for me, it was very inspirational because, I'm sorry, your name again? Brianna, like you were saying, the infusion of history. So I love to learn, but I'm not necessarily a history buff. So there was a lot in there. I was like, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that either. So it was refreshing, especially in the society we live in today, where everything is, by the minute tidbit. You get a little bit here, a little bit there. He was able to really go in depth and help people understand what was happening. So I appreciated the historical component. As a creative, I was thinking about the innovation that it took to get to the movie. So he had to write the movie. Mm-hmm. He had to find a cast who was capable of embodying these characters, not only physically, but do they know their lines? Are they projecting the appropriate tone? Do they have chemistry together? So for me, for it to go from mind to paper to screen was very just inspirational for me. And I love to see creatives in their best light, in their best spot. So I am a silent artist, which I define as like a writer editor. So I'm behind the scenes, but I definitely appreciate the visual arts and performance. And I just really love to see, I didn't watch any of the like interviews leading up to it or any of the behind the scenes, but I would have loved to have seen that progression and just imagine how much, energy and passion and love went into that from paper to screen. That just really blew my mind.
Ernez, what was going through your mind as the credits rolled?
Oh my gosh. I will say this. I had a lot of complicated feelings about this film. And it's funny that you say as the credits were rolling, because seriously, as the credits were rolling, because I love to sit at the end of all films. I wait till the very end, till it's darkened and they turn on the lights. And I'm glad that I did, because there's, spoiler alert, there's so many end credits. And so I'll say my complicated feelings really were complicated by the ending of the film, the many endings, I'll say. And so so I went on a roller coaster of emotions because I thought there was just so many powerful moments in the film. And then there are a lot of things I left wanting more of. And it wasn't necessarily a criticism. And I'll say it started off as a criticism where I was like, oh my God, like, why didn't we get more of this? And what's going on? And that was mostly a response to the overwhelming response that I was trying to avoid before going into the movie, because I didn't want anything spoiled. I didn't even know that Michael B. Jordan, Ryan B. Johnson. I didn't even know that Michael B. Jordan played twins, because where I saw it, for some reason, how it was being projected, it was a digital projection. The coloring, I felt like they were lighting one of the twins' face enough where they didn't look like twins to me. And it got a little further into the film where I'm like, oh my God, no, they actually are twins. And that I didn't even know that. And so I avoided everything, and I had different expectations for the film. And then watching it, there are just certain things that went up and down for me. And I have more to say about the ending and the many endings of it. But what has happened is since the first viewing, I've since watched it again. I wanted to see it projected in film, and I think it was like 2 weeks between the first time I saw it and the second time I saw it, and so it's been a slow burn. It's not a perfect film, and I think it's working in really interesting ways through the culture, and also through the actual story and the way things are told, but also because of the histories that it's touching on. it's just kind of unfurling in ways that is really, really fascinating to me, despite all the problems I have with the film. So yeah.
Aisha, what were your thoughts as the credits were rolling?
Really, I left the movie feeling pretty proud and happy. And pretty much the same feelings I had after watching Black Panther and Wakanda Forever. To see a cast of primarily Black people on screen telling a story like that, or a story where we're heroes, is really inspiring. So I went with my mom, and we didn't even know they were going to be in credits. We were getting up at our seats, and we saw all the other Black people sitting in their seats. We're like, oh, wait, we're like, oh, wait, there's some other scenes about to happen. And since we left off on that scene with Stack and Tammy, and how that ended, and the choice of music they played, I think it was a mix of sadness, but I don't know. I was content with how it ended.
Heather, how about you? Same question. What was going through your head?
Excuse me. I was very proud. Like throughout the whole movie, I remember going in, and when it started, I hadn't seen the trailers or anything. So I just went in, and I was like, oh, I heard there's a movie with Michael B. Jordan, and he's gonna be a vampire. So I didn't know anything about it. And so it started, and I saw 1932 Mississippi. I automatically was like, I hope this is not like a slave movie. I just remember thinking that because I'm just kind of done seeing Black history always come in that area of our history.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved how they showed the joy and then the community and then the togetherness. Even like the beginning scene after that jump scare where Preacher Boy is showing the day before and how he came in the house after work, and everybody's playing, the kids are playing, and the mother's doing the laundry, but there's love and there's joy and there's community. And even when, they drive down and Stack gets cornbread and they're picking cotton, there's still a sense of pride and community. Like it never came off as this sad, woe is me, oh, look at what they've done to us. Like the whole movie was Black people proud, Black people strong, regardless of what time it was. And I love that. And then that music scene gave me chills. And I kind of wanted what's that? Once the guitar came in, and they showed everybody around, like the future, the past, and all that. So by the time the second, because I looked it up, I was like, they have post-credit scenes. I actually told the oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually told the there was one other Black gentleman. I live in a primarily white area.
I'm sorry.
And, and so the only other Black gentleman was about to leave, and I said, wait, there's another post-credit scene. and then after I saw Sammy singing This Little Light of Mine, I was like, I need to go home and look at all my photo albums because you know what? This is beautiful. We are a strong, resilient people, and we gonna be okay. Like that's how I left it. Like this was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I want a prequel, 3 sequels, and another prequel. And I felt
And a
so
TV
proud.
series.
Right. I just felt so extremely proud of my Blackness. I just did.
Absolutely. Tego. So what has so first and foremost, for anyone who is not familiar, with DJ Takeo. So I've been following this man's TikTok ever since he joined us with the last podcast, and he's been making multiple videos dedicated to Sinners. Not only that, he's also made a few mixes. So I think I can I can definitely see, and of course, I'm going to allow you to obviously like talk about what the film has meant to you, but clearly it has done something because what he's done is he's taken songs from the soundtrack and mixed it, with other songs, and they're incredible. I suggest you all go follow him on TikTok right now. Just like all of our guests, right? To go and follow them. Of course, we'll have that in the show notes later on. But DJ Tago, what has this film meant to you?
I mean, if y'all can hear me, like fundamentally, it was truly just like if you have a creative talent, if you have a creative passion, if you have an art that speaks to you and speaks to your talents and abilities, do it. Like you don't need anyone's permission. You don't need any kind of gateway in front of you. Like do it. Like go all in, be a nerd about it, be outrageous about it, just go all in because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what opportunities are going to open up for you. But as long as you're rooted in just this is what I love to do and I want to do it for this purpose, like just go balls to the wall with it. Like it was clear from the interviews with Coogler that like, nah, he's about this film stuff. And it's funny because he was saying like before I think just wanted to be a doctor because that's just what, you just do. But then one of his teachers was like, you should write. Like I read like your, I think project. And it was like, you're a good writer. You should look into screenplays and imagine just the universe where he just ended up not writing, where he ended up not going into the arts of this in this manner and didn't discover that love for it. And we never got Sinners. So it's just like speak to the stuff within you. Like let that speak through you and let these just wonderful things come out and just allow it to happen and just just submit to it,
Right. Yeah.
Cause like imagine you've made a movie and I saw your video, Jackie, that was like, imagine you made a movie that has people saying you changed their DNA.
Yes. Yeah. So just
Like
for reference, yes, so someone to another video that I made about Sinners had said that this film altered their DNA. And so I was like, let me make movies that alter people, that people come out of the film saying it altered my DNA. That is the new bar. That is the bar for me right now as a filmmaker. Yes.
Right. So it was just like what everyone has been saying. Like this was very clearly like a master class. This is very clearly someone who knows what they're doing and knows it well enough to say, all right, let's start breaking some rules. Let's start bending some rules. Let's start adding in things that you won't ever see like done again that won't have that signature of like I did that first. And it was just so cool. And like the music, like, oh my God. Like I talked about it on the previous podcast episode, but like immersive, you need to see it in IMAX. And if you can't see it in theaters, get the best sound system you can if you guys see it at home, because the music is part of the message delivery. Like it's essential to it. So it was just all encompassing. I think it was something that really like gripped you on all like kind of five senses in a way. And the message was just so like layered and powerful. And the discourse has just been like nonstop because of like it hit at the right time. I think it really opened up conversations and raised questions, especially now in our very chaotic, very, very wild time within, people say it's late stage capitalism and stuff. But like, yeah, it's just like, these are essential questions now amongst our folks across the diaspora about like, what do we invite in? Like, what do we facilitate? What do we do with our time? What does it mean to be free? What do we do to build that freedom for ourselves, even if it's temporary? What does it build because of that? So just so much to talk about from it, so much to read because of it. People read, keep on getting them books open and read. It's just like, yeah, it's art, cinema.
Cinema. Yeah, hearing all of you speak about like what your first thoughts were, or what the film has meant to you. That's the thing I really love about it. I mean, we can say this about all art, but like specifically for me as a filmmaker, as someone who is a film fan, I really love seeing people's reactions and hearing from all of you just how vastly different, right, everyone's experience is, but that, there are semblances of like all of these things, so, just as a people, right? Like, which is why I wanted to get all of us together, like to talk about the film, because there's so much that hits home for so many of us. And it's all, while there are similarities, there is something for everyone in this film. I've seen people, wanting to see it and saying, "Hey, I'm a scaredy cat. Is this going to like? Am I going to be? Is this film for me?" And despite being scared, they still went and saw the film and got a lot out of it. So with this film, and of course we'll touch on the music scene, because of course so many of you like talked about that. I want to talk about something we didn't get to talk about the last time, and I haven't really seen a lot of discourse about, but the importance of Black elders, and especially when we're talking about Delta Slim. That scene in the car where he's talking about his friends getting lynched. And then you hear, shout out to the sound team, who there's the sound editors, you could hear as he's talking what's happening, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, again, just watching this as both a film fan and a filmmaker, I'm like, they didn't show what was happening, which is one thing in itself. I feel like anytime we talk about trauma, they are always shove us right back to that time, and then we're seeing it, and then it's just re-traumatizing people. But that we're hearing what's happening, and then he starts to kind of trail off, and he goes right into like a song, because of course music, it's a way for us to cope. It's a way for us to it's a safe space for us. And I also just like want to dive deeper into, again, like having someone like Delta Slim around who has been through it, who has seen so much, but who is also being this, whether on purpose or accidentally, right? He, to the rest of the people in the film, specifically of course the other Black folks in the film, is someone that they are, leaning on for whatever purpose, but who is important, who his role, I mean, I would say like Delta Slim's role in this is vastly important, right? He's helping others. He's, trying to, impart wisdom, onto, the other characters in this film. So I want to talk about, again, like the importance of our elders. Like, do you feel his role in this speaks to a larger discussion about the importance of elders, or am I just, am I off, or is there anything in particular you want to say, to Delta Slim's character? Because I think he is the only one, right, that is technically older, like, than the rest of his counterparts. Yeah. What do y'all think?
Oh, you just hit
Yeah.
a wound for me, low-key.
I'm sorry.
No, which is important. And I like that you asked that question, because for me, I guess he's an important guide. Like, so when I went to see this movie, I saw it once, and to be honest, I've been kind of going through a lot from watching that movie just one time, because I've had like epiphanies and stuff with it. But around the time I went to see it on the anniversary of my thesis opening, and thinking about my grandmother, and unfortunately she passed last year. And and even thinking about the symbolism of spirituality and guides, and even for her, she was really big in the church. Like, one of my yoga friends said she was like a spiritual guide for me. Like, she really helped me ask a lot of tough questions with myself. So seeing the movie touch on stuff like that, even for Delta Slim, like how even him kind of going into that, him like going back to his roots of like consoling himself. And I'm glad they didn't show the part of the lynchings, because it made me think about my grandmother, who she died at 73. Like, she was born in 1950 in Charles, South Carolina. During her teenage years, she was very active and vocal in the civil rights movement down there. So how she passed on a lot of that stuff to me and my siblings, like music, Negro spirituals, stuff like that. The National Black Anthem, how much that was so vital. Like, some kids don't even know that song.
Oh, yeah.
So like how important elders, especially Black elders, are in the community when it comes to transition of time and hardship. So for me, it was I was a little emotional watching the movie, thinking about my grandma and that. So, yeah.
Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, I definitely want to add to that because so Delta Slim as are all the characters in this film very complicated.
Yes.
And so I think what my mind goes to when we ask that question, and I always think about how no one was essentialized in this film, and Delta Slim starts off as someone who is not supportive,
Right.
who is territorial and not interested until he was given something. And along the way, though, as we get to know him, he opens up about why he is the way he is. And it makes me think about how, in my family, and I feel like all of us can relate who are descendants of slaves, we have really complicated relationships with the elders because of the trauma that passes through lineage. And I felt that through Delta Slim, but also I have relatives who have passed away, who I think about, who I love dearly, who were complete assholes sometimes, who were people who made me laugh harder than I've ever laughed before, who I couldn't trust with certain things, but who I miss all the time. And that moment in the car when they pass by the chain gang, and he tells them he knew all of them. It goes back into his history as a traveling musician. Like, why is he just on the corner, working daily at this one place for not that much money at the train station? Busking during the day, and then not really looking for work, but also for always putting his money into alcohol, and even that is explained to us. Going into the blues, I thought, what an amazing way of talking about the origin of the blues showing us without telling us. And also I'm an artist, and also full disclosure, Coco was one of my former students. That's why at the very beginning, Coco was like, look at me. But I make hums, and where I use my voice and I layer it on top of each other, and I made those hums as a way of soothing myself, and then learned over time that it is a way that you can soothe your nervous system, not knowing that that's what I was doing. I just did it out of impulse because I needed to be soothed. And also the history comes from my grandmother, who was known as a hummer. She hummed all the time. But also that sound, the sound of the lynching, you mentioning that, Jackie, made me think of the movie Zone of Interest. Did anyone see that film?
That's on my list.
So Zone of Interest
On my list.
also uses sound in a really interesting way, sound of trauma, sound of genocide, actually. So it takes place in this, a very important high-ranking officer in the Nazi party who was basically overseeing exterminations in Auschwitz. And so the sounds you're hearing are Auschwitz, but you don't ever see Auschwitz. You don't ever see the gas chambers. You don't ever see people being tortured. But you hear the sound almost the entire film. And there's something about that where, again, they're showing us, not telling us. And you get this trauma in a way that I feel like is even felt more deeply and identified with more deeply, because we don't have to see it. It allows our imagination to go there. We didn't have to be in that train station with that man who was lynched through Delta Slim's story, but we get to experience it with Delta through his memories, this trauma. And there's just a layer of that I think is, again, like, it's relatable in a way that we can feel it in our complicated, and I'll say my complicated relationship with my elders, who I love, but are not perfect for very, very good reasons. But still are people who, are very important in showing us who we are and where we've come from. So.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I think one, shout out to Delroy Lindo. Like, he is my favorite. Like, when I found out he was British, I was hurt.
What? Wait a second. I didn't know that.
You didn't know he was British?
British.
He's British. No, it's okay. That's what I did.
No,
that is what I did.
That's what. Yeah.
Because that man plays Black American trauma and Black American men so well. And it's just, what is it? I also just watched him in Unprisoned, right?
Oh,
Have y'all
okay.
seen
I
Unprisoned?
haven't, but I've heard.
He plays a father who's coming home from prison after leaving his daughter when she was like 10. And he was in prison for the rest of her life, or not rest of her life, but up until then, for about 15 years, and left her with her white stepmother to raise her. And they got all kinds of issues, but what he puts into that role as someone who had like a father who wasn't there, also dealt with the impact of like the prison system, and just talking about the impact of prison system with Black men in America specifically. I was like, this man's not what? He's not American. He's British, but he understands and he gets it, and he just puts it forth in such a.
It's in the diaspora though. Like
Yeah,
he's
right.
not Brit, but
Right,
it's
right.
in the diaspora.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
and it's the same roots, and
Yeah.
I mean that goes back to Sinners, right? Because it shows us we all have these shared roots of people
Mhm.
that we will never ever know their names, and we will never know what their lives were truly like, but they tie us all together. And I feel like that's what his role really, it bridged that gap of a time when these people that he's around will not know that because they weren't born yet. You know, he has memories that they could never fathom. And of course he shared one that of course was really traumatizing, and that's only the tip. We don't know what else
Right. Oh,
that man went through, bearing his life in alcohol as often as he can. He obviously is fighting some demons bigger than we can even fathom.
Right.
And I think that was a juxtaposition. The only other person that we see around like older is Sammy at the end.
Right.
When he is a successful musician who's able to realize the dreams of Delta Slim and his ancestors. And I think, and he now is that elder, but look what he went through
Right.
in the piece that we saw. So I think Delta Slim plays such an important role, and just in that, the fact that scene of him humming was improvised. Okay.
Ah, that I didn't
It was
know.
improvised.
Okay.
Is why you don't see Sammy playing the guitar when he was like, "Hey, play something."
Right.
It was like he did not know what to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Delroy was just being Delroy, and that's what I mean. It's like people online, they like to say they like to self-cast and put other people in it. I'm like, nah, don't play with me. Delroy was meant to play Delta Sims. Whatever connection he had to that role, it was phenomenally displayed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to go into the music scene. And then of course I have other things I want to get into, of course, after that. However, cannot let this podcast go on without talking about the iconic scene that everyone is talking about, where Miles or Sammy breaks out the guitar, and you start seeing, and of course you hear in the background, believe it's Annie with the voiceovers talking about how this gift, right, that Sammy has brings out both, the ancestors we have from the past and also the future. So yes, let's talk about it. Let's talk about, your thoughts, your feelings around it, how it made you feel, what was going on through your head. Who wants to start?
I'll go.
Okay. Go on.
That was my absolute favorite part. And when I left, I went on Spotify and I got the album, and then I went on Amazon when they released it, and I got the CD.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
That's right.
That
CD in years.
that part was so amazing visually because the IMAX screen,
Yes. Yes.
and when it opened up, I was
Yup.
like, oh.
That's really what it is. That's really what it felt like, though.
And then as they added, there were some people who had issues with, the instruments they were adding, or the it sounded chaotic to some people, but I love that. I love that it seemed chaotic, but it was a balance of joining the past with the present, with the future. And so it would seem chaotic, but it's still harmonized so well. You know what I mean? And then my favorite part, and everybody gets on me for this, is to see I don't know what tribe it's from, but we saw African dancers
Yeah.
doing the girl in the shells, and then they kind of veered over, and you saw a girl twerking because I've had this soapbox stance that like twerking is not inherently sexual. It is a dance.
Yes.
And we dance. We have rhythm. It's in our blood. And I love the comparison, like the connection of like, look, you guys, this is what we do. This is who we are. This is what we come from. And I just thought it was so, my grandmother was with me and she didn't understand it because she's half deaf. But I thought it was just a beautiful blending of culture, times, music to get that point across. And then that last note when the fire starts burning from when he summons the vampires, basically.
By mistake, not on purpose.
Yeah, by mistake, right. But that, I had chills. I wanted to stand up and clap, but again, I live in a primarily white neighborhood and I did not want to scare anybody. But I was like, can we just rewind that 1 second? I just want to hear it one more time.
All right.
It was absolutely beautiful. It was cinematically, I think, it was my favorite scene from any movie. It was beautiful to see. And then they had like the Asian dancers come out as well. And I was like, oh, I just recently started watching K-dramas, so I'm on this. I'm on this shit, right? And so I was like, oh, I know what they're doing. Not that they're Korean, but I was like, I know what they're doing. And I just thought it was a beautiful combination of just music and life. And again, that joy, that passion, that spirit that I think we as a Black community specifically have, that grandiose presence that we seem to embody wherever we go, whatever we do, whatever we wear. It was like all on that screen. And I loved it. I think he should win an Oscar just for that scene.
Listen,
Real.
IT.
it's like see the painting that we've all seen since we were
Yes.
from Good Times.
Yes.
We're seeing that come to life on screen in a way that it like the blend. People have to remember there's beauty in chaos. As a chaotic person, I gotta remind people that. Okay,
It's there.
in chaos, and every piece of that scene was important. Annie being the one to walk us through it, who is this healer and protector and this nurturing soul.
Yes.
That people need to stop playing with.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because that was insane to me, the reaction of Annie, which we can get into.
True story.
Listen, like that, the music scene, one of my favorite scenes I could rewatch over and over and over again and find something else that I enjoyed from it. And Miles Caton voice.
Oh my
He
God.
has such
God.
an interesting
Yes.
voice. I loved his voice.
Yes.
With that voice, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was such a beautifully well done scene. That's like Katira brought up earlier, like the idea of like from pen to screen. This man wrote that scene and brought it to life like that. And that's just astonishing. I feel it's
Also, small note, not small actually, because it's huge. Miles did not know how to play guitar.
Right.
Yeah.
He learned specifically for the part.
That's that Black excellence.
listen.
Listen, talk about it.
I'm saying.
Everybody locked in for this movie. Just
Absolutely.
everybody locked in.
For real.
The casting directors, whoever was in charge of casting, did a phenomenal job.
I will say, Haley, I know that girl from Pitch Perfect.
I know.
I was so confused and surprised.
I felt about Remick. I watched him, Jack O'Connell, since like Skins. Oh my!
Right.
Especially the British actors. I'm telling you, the British actors are coming. They're coming.
They're coming.
They're
Oh,
coming.
the British are coming. The
Right,
British.
yo.
Yo.
Nosferatu, Monkey Man.
Oh
like,
my gosh,
come on
they're
now.
already here.
They're already
yeah,
Spider-Man.
Well,
seriously.
and I wanted to, well, because I wanted to say something about the dance scene, because there's something that, wait, the person who just spoke, what is her name again?
Heather.
Heather. Okay, thank you, Heather. So Heather reminded me, it's not that scene, but it's the other scene when, oh gosh, what is Sam?
We're
The
getting the
love
Irish
interest of
jig?
Sammy. Mm-mm.
Oh,
Pearline.
Pearline.
Oh.
Pearline.
When
Yeah.
Pearline
Yeah.
starts
Hell,
singing,
hell.
and there's that other
Ooh,
music
yeah.
scene, that is, and to me, it reminded me of those paintings that we all have, or maybe not we all. I'll say like I had this painting in my house growing up. And a lot of my relatives had this painting, but it's an Ernie Barnes painting, and it is almost of like black people dancing in a juke joint.
Yeah.
And I could have sworn that it was on purpose the way she
Yes.
was dressed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there was one scene where they were moving, where
Shout
I'm
out
like,
to Ruth Carter.
it looks
Yes.
just like
About to
those
get her third Oscar.
paintings.
Mhm.
And so, but I was thinking about the word chaos. And I think I've been really interested in people's responses to this because I think that's also what's really interesting, how this movie is working on people on many different levels. But I didn't think chaos at all with that dance scene. And I don't think it had anything to do with me understanding what was going on.
Right.
It's just that there was a parallel, almost always a parallel, where we had some reference to the present, which is 1932 present, some reference to the past, and some reference to the future of 1932, and would pop out in ways where it was working with time in a way that was so amazing and very moving. And the way we kind of circled around the dance floor, this is how I didn't want to really look into any spoilers, but I know that there is a video about how the cinematographer shot that scene. It is very difficult to shoot a scene like that, and I don't want to know, but I am actually very interested in how they choreograph that, but how we follow each other through, and then you hear the references in the music as well. But I also think it's really interesting people's responses to this, in like negative or critical, or I would say like internalized shame over certain things, where there was because I'm from LA, and there were Bloods and Crips were represented on there, and I've been going through a whole other thing with rap music and hip hop. Thanks to Kendrick Lamar, and I grew up. No, should I say I don't know? I grew up in a neighborhood where there are people I know who know people, and I grew up, I'll just say, and I grew up with a lot of stigma around that way of dancing, that type of music, and what's been happening is a lot of things have been happening where it's felt more safe to do certain things that you wouldn't do outside the neighborhood, and to see it on a screen. And I know Kugler is from California as well, so he has those references. It just filled me with a lot of just connection, and I will say in the theater I went to, there weren't many other Black people there, but when the Irish Jig Part came up, there's a man across the aisle who had my reaction. His reaction to that Irish Jig was my reaction to this mainly African American scene on the dance floor, and I was just like, oh, this is just really fascinating. And again, like, my only issue is that I wanted more Chinese. I wanted more of those representations too. I wanted more in the Irish section as well. But also, a last thing is like the roof actually burned. Can we curse on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, they burned the motherfucking roof. The roof was on fire, and when that happened, I was like, "Oh my god! Like, does anyone know like the roof is on?
Yes.
They're letting this motherfucker burn, motherfucker!" And I'm just like, "Are you kidding me?" And so when they're outside, and it's burned, and then it didn't really burn, because I was like, "Wait, is it really burned now?" But that flashback, but even that reference, even that was something that was like, the roof is on fire. This is incredible. So yeah.
And then the white people came and messed up all the joy.
Men are dangerous.
Right. If
White men are dangerous.
If that wasn't a scene, like just seeing these folks be happy and joyous.
It's like, oh, it's
And
time
be
to
like,
hit
I'm
a
gonna go
lick.
fuck it up. And it's just, yeah.
You're never really alone.
Okay.
Hey.
When you're Black, you're never alone.
That's right.
For anyone who knows that sound on TikTok.
Yeah.
Another note. So when you're talking about, when you mentioned Ramek and you had to come and mess it up. So when I looked up, I was trying to look up like the other songs. So like the Irish, songs, or specifically actually the song Pick Poor Robin Clean. So like I think that's the first one that we're introduced to. I looked this up. It is actually, it comes from us. It's a black song, Black American song. And the reason, so Remick is singing that when he's approaching the people in the juke joint. And to me, that just, I mean, there's, of course, there's so many layers. There's so many layers packed into the film. But the fact that Remick is singing that, a song that he knows that black folks are going to know. He shows up, right? Cleaned up, dressed up. I heard tales of a party, right? To try to get into the juke joint. And then just to add the layer on top of that, to be singing this song because he knows that black folks are familiar with it. Just another way of, like, again, trying to use someone's culture, use someone's music in order to get an in for your own selfish and destructive purposes. That, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The dramatic irony of that whole scene,
Yeah.
I loved it because I was just like, they don't know that they're literal monsters. They don't know that they're literal vampires, but it's still like, you're not coming in here because we know the monstrosity of this white supremacist system is always just going to mess us up. Because he was like, if we look at them funny, if we step on their shoe, if they get mad and they call up their boys in the clan, it's raps for everybody anyway. So it's already just like, yo, we don't even know that you're literally going to try and eat us, but we've already been burned by this system and this monstrosity. And it's like the dramatic irony of like, hey, this is a killing house too, that they literally bought from like clan members. Like, people have already been brutalized and died in here. It's just like, just layers and layers upon that. And then I didn't even realize Pick Poor Robin Clean was like a Black American song too. And he's outright saying, hey man, I'm gonna take y'all shit. Like, I know you. I'm gonna take you. Like, bro, like, yo, like, I love the audience knows what's going on. And it's just like, y'all get it too, though. Like, y'all see it, but you don't see it, but y'all see it. And you're like, get out, like, get from here. Like, it's so funny.
I mean, it's just for, yeah. It's like, it's, and I'm leading. I'm going to say this and lead into another question that's been a huge debate online in particular. For me, and I don't know if any of you like also got this, but a big theme. There's a number of themes, but a big theme in the film that I felt, was just like out there was like, stop inviting people to the cookout. Like,
Please.
stop
Yes.
inviting
Please.
people
I was
to
gonna
the
say that.
proverbial.
So what's up with
That's
ginger people are black or something?
Oh,
Like,
no,
what's going-
That-
what's going on with that?
That was just a joke, though. That was just a joke.
That was a joke.
That was
Okay.
just a joke, and then people didn't understand the joke.
Yeah.
Pretty much like the joke pretty much was like, well, because I feel like it was
Because they get picked on.
no, but it's also like I feel like it's just like watching people. It's like watching telephone, the game of telephone.
Right.
So like the question, the thing was pretty much like redheads are, and not saying that they are, but are the black folks of the white community, like how they get treated
Right.
outwardly because of their appearance and stuff. So of course, people taking something like that and just running with everything else, cutting things down to, oh, redheads
Gingers
are black.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been watching like through the lens, and I was like, and it was also funny thinking about the conversation of Pick Poor Robin Clean, like that part. I learned the fact that him singing that song is so funny because that song came out a year before, not even a year before.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the conversation of appropriation.
Right.
That's-
So that fact that he sang that song at
so
the
many
door.
layers.
Does he know that song because he ate someone who knew that song?
That's what
I
I'm
think
saying.
Told them in my-
Yo.
That's the
Right.
real question.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Look.
Oh,
I
my
wanted
God.
to add to that
Yeah.
and say that the same thing they did with using the music to try to befriend, the black group, they did with religion. So at one point, the woman, the one who was, it was the two men, and then she was the woman vampire. I think she said, "This is a community of love," and I'm like, how many times do we hear that and we know better? They use certain language and words and terms and coins
Yeah, all are
to make it
welcome.
sound. Yes, exactly.
Not
When
all.
in fact we know that's not the case. So it's nothing new. It's something that's been done. But seeing it on screen and just seeing those examples of how people can appropriate and try to cause harm with this facade or this costume that they're there with love and good intention.
Yeah.
All were welcome with Remick because he was like, racist? Me? The Klan?
Nah.
He was
Man, I'll go mount and blow myself. What do you mean?
Klan?
I think he had a moment because the other two were Klan members, and he has their memories and thoughts in his head. So he was like,
Right.
He specifically said, "Sir." Like he was offended. How dare you?
he was like, I bit them, and they will not be practicing that anymore. You
They've
understand?
been converted. Don't worry.
What?
All right. Big question. Because I say the reason I say big question because it's been a bit of a debate. Here we go. Was Grace in the wrong?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody said it.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to say,
We had options.
I understand
Context.
why she did it.
Okay.
I'm not saying I don't understand, but it was still wrong.
Okay. I will say. Wait, did anyone else have anything to say before? Okay, because I saw this before I saw your question, Jackie,
Yeah.
before I saw the movie the second time, and I thought about that at those moments.
Yeah.
And honestly, they put Grace through a lot.
They did.
They put her through so much. I think out of everyone who was going to lose someone, who had lost someone that we also had like kind of a relationship with, that they had introduced as a character. I was like, no, I get it. It was so overwhelming at the end. And also to know, we don't know what happened to her daughter, but that was there was a real chance that she was going to lose her daughter as well. And so in a way, I felt like out of everyone there, she was the one to kind of, I totally think that she was not necessarily in the wrong. I totally understood.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that she was wrong. I am not a mother. I'm not a parent. But I can imagine if I was, that my child is going to be at the top of the list. I don't give a damn who's in the room.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was, I don't care about the Black community. I hope you all die or become vampires. It was more so, I have a legacy. I have a seed out there who needs me to protect her, and I need to get out. Granted, it wasn't likely that they were going to, make it out. But just from hearing people talk about the love that they have for their children unconditionally, I can't blame her for sacrificing herself and everybody else to make sure, or try to make sure, that her child was going to be saved, safe, not be in harm's way. The other element of that, though, is I will say, I think it is a projection of how the Black community interacts with each other versus other communities. So she came to a point where she said, okay, yeah, I'm cool with y'all, but I got this kid over here, so that's more important than you. And I just feel like in our community, we are already lumped into BIPOC. So we have us, and then everybody else is in there, and we get lost in the sauce. So I think that scene kind of shows like, okay, the Asian community, they're looking out for themselves. They might help us up until a certain point, but when it gets to their preservation, they're like, okay, this is where we're parting ways. But in the Black community, a lot of times we sacrifice ourselves for others, or we get sacrificed for others. And I think that scene really was powerful in showing, how we're different from other groups, and maybe learning, like maybe we need to start. And I can't ignore the fact that when we do have our own, it gets destroyed. So I will not overlook that. When we have our own, what was it, Greenwood in Oklahoma, and all these other places that existed, outsiders came in and destroyed. So it's not like we haven't tried to do that, but I think we still need to continue to do that. So I really appreciated the elements in that particular scene, and showing, sacrifice of motherhood, sacrifice of self and others in order to protect your offspring, but also self-preservation of your group, whatever that group may be.
And I will say, in response to that, to go back to it, that I don't think that okay. I think that I don't want to put on Grace that she's representing the Chinese Southern community, or that anyone else in this movie is representing like the Black community. Only to say, to go back to this character and what was done to her as Grace, as losing her husband, seeing him as one of the vampires who was so seductive at that. Those threshold scenes were so painful because they're so seductive, and then here it's just, and also so successful in seeing how not easy, how difficult it is to stay inside, to see your loved one talking and sounding just like the person that you love who left, who you know is dead, and also the scene of Remick talking to her in Chinese.
Yeah,
No one
that was
else
a violation.
That's true.
No one could understand what he was saying, but
Yeah.
she could.
Targeted.
So in that sense, it's not about self-preservation as like, fuck y'all black people. It's all for me. It's like, Grace, I've lost my husband. I might lose my daughter. And here's this man threatening assault of my daughter. And it's just the response of a human being of something that is so overwhelmingly wrong. And yes, a violation. That's so intimate and so deep that why would we expect her to be rational? Why? Why would we expect her to have a rational response? Like, her response to me actually was rational. And if you want to, have it as to its logical end. And also, in a way, it's so specific. So many people of these characters were specific, where it's like, yeah, I can't relate to that. And so in a way, all I have to do is step back and just kind of trust this is the decision that Grace came up against. But also, I think it's also that thing of taking us outside of making it a general thing and appreciating just how well written this whole scenario was for this particular character as an individual.
I will also say I don't know if oh, there it is. And I'm glad you both said that, because I agree with you both in that, because I was like, I'm an older sister. I don't have kids. My sister has kids, so I understand that innate situation of not say fuck everybody, but my kids and stuff. But I'm also saying, even for me, because I had to sit with my own stuff, I'm like, maybe I'm not mature enough for this, to sit with this kind of conflict and everything. Because I was also like, well, this is not saying what happens, but when we bring people into groups, and especially because I get what she went through was rough, like really rough. But I was also like, prior to when everything was already shifting, especially with Stack, like, they're ready to go.
Right.
And I was like, dang, the switch of, well, this is not my problem. Yeah. This doesn't relate to me, to, oh my God, now this is my problem. This is really hitting home type stuff. So like, I like that mix of conflict in that storyline, because and the thing, it took me a while because I was so frustrated with that scene. I was so angry. But when I sat and really thought about it, I was like, her name's Grace. Her name is
Ooh.
And to add to that, so when you said Grace, because I was thinking about it earlier today, so the movie is called Sinners, and what does it always say in the Bible? By grace, the sinners, so sinners are saved by grace. And I'm like,
and like I had to sit
Or
with
not.
like,
or not, right?
no, or not.
It's an inversion.
No, for real, I had to really sit with that, because I was like, I have been in situations where I had to, like, as an older sibling, protect my siblings. So that's the biggest role as an older sibling. Like, don't come home and see without that,
Right.
So like, by nature, I couldn't understand, because I've been in those situations where I had to protect a sibling just off of bat, like not even thinking. It's just moving,
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the entire. Oh, my bad. Actually, no, you haven't spoken a bit. You got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll just make it quick. I totally agree with what Coco said. I don't have any kids either, but I do have a nephew. And horror movies, well, the whole genre is my favorite genre. I watch horror movies a lot. And I'm not going to say I'm not loyal or anything, but as soon as things get rough, if I got to do something, I'm out. Like, and if it comes to family or like people I'm just hanging around, I'm going to choose.
Like, we all see the
That's
memes.
all. But I
We
think
see the memes about black people in horror movies. We're like, why following the voice?
Yes.
We're going home.
we go home. But
I just.
but
No, go.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna wrap it up, but I just want to say I think she held out for a good bit on going with what the twins, Smoke and everybody else wanted to do. She was like, okay, you say we can just wait a little longer, I'll wait. And she tried, but she had a lot on the line. And maybe how she was acting towards the twins and how the things they do made people think she was kind of like, it was like a racial betrayal, but I think she just realized there's some danger involved with them. So even though, I'll work with them, I'll do this for them, I got to keep my distance.
Yeah.
That's
I
all.
think that I think this is one of the underlying messages of the film because I don't know if they meant to do it, but I was like, is this one of those the Asian community was dealing with the black community very strongly, very heavily until white people got involved. And white people and white supremacy literally was like, hey, we don't want you to like them. We don't want you to get along with them. Nobody can get along with them. So come here. We're going to give you loans. We're going to let you buy property. We're going to let you own stores. And that literally put in the disconnect between the Asian community and the black community. And so when I saw that scene, I was like, no, would they? Because as a mother, the first thing I thought was, I'm not going to tell them to come inside because then if they kill all of us, who's going to protect my baby? We got to plan out what to do. We have to plan how we going to kill all these people because we got to kill all of them before we leave here because they know where my baby is. That's what I thought as a mother watching that. So when she called them in and then immediately died, I was like, and you see why we don't do stuff when we don't think and make a plan, especially when we have babies. Do you see?
Went out in a literal blaze of glory.
Yes.
Literal blaze.
Yes.
I do have a note about, so Heather, what you were saying about the Chinese community. So there is I think it's 8 minutes. It's an 8-minute documentary by Al Jazeera about Southern Chinese in the Mississippi Delta.
I see that.
And okay, yes. And so for everyone else who is watching, listening, so as I would definitely say, go and watch that. Like I said, it's only 8 minutes, but it's packed with a lot of information. So because the Chinese community at that time, they were coming, I guess, so when enslaved folks were freed, and I'm putting quotes around freed, when they were freed, of course, now those enslavers or former enslavers didn't have people to work the land. So they brought over Chinese Americans, and Chinese Americans because they were looking, or Chinese folks, they were looking for opportunities, for jobs. And of course what they ended up doing was obviously, or not, maybe not obvious, but they would charge them, or they would give them, smaller wages. But because, they were willing to, do whatever work, they took that. The thing is though, like they weren't allowed to be where, white folks obviously were. And because they're not white nor black, it's trying to find like your place, right? Because you can't, or you're not necessarily associating with white folks at the same time, like, because again, white supremacy is at work. You're now like, okay, you're in this community. What would happen is, so the specific family that they talk about in the documentary, they served both the white and the black community. They had 2 stores, one on either side of the street. So that's why in the movie you see, there's 2 stores. The thing is, and this is what got me thinking back to like this question of, regardless of whether or not, Grace is this, representation of like cross racial solidarity and all that. What got me thinking about that was the fact that Grace is she serves the white side of the community and Bo serves the black side of the community. Bo also, though, to that end, has a relationship with Smoke and Stack, more specifically Smoke. So it just got me thinking about that. And also, too, the thing is, Heather, when you're talking about, white folks, they were offering, Chinese Americans, they were offering them property. They actually, I remember in that documentary, so for everyone else who's listening, they were not allowed to own homes. So a lot of them actually lived in their shops. And so, and the reason why they were able to, make the money that they did, even if it was a little bit, they thrived right off of, what Black Americans were giving them. But at the same time, too, because, Black folks at the time were working as sharecroppers, a lot of them didn't have the money to be able to pay, things in the store. So often what would happen is there would be these agreements between, the Chinese store owners, right, and the Black community where they would kind of work. They would, pay in installments, right? You know, they would give them store credit, and do so. It's this really kind of like complicated and not complicated in many different ways, like relationship. And you know, we see things like that all the time.
I just have sorry,
Yeah.
one other thing to say when you brought up Bo's relationship with Smoke and Stack. Smoke and Stack were also some like rough,
No, yeah. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I also got at the very beginning that Grace was kind of like, all right, they're back in town. Like, oh my God,
They're
here's
troublemakers.
all trouble,
Mhm.
all trouble, always coming up with something. You're wrapping my husband into whatever, blah blah blah. And so that's
Yeah.
I feel like that's also
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
in that as well.
Absolutely.
That they were just like,
and they were troublemakers.
They were
Yes.
troublemakers.
They shot 2 men. Like, right outside.
two
I was
men.
like, hey,
They
here's
shot
money
2
to
men.
fix him up.
And then he turns around and is like teaching this girl how to bargain. Like,
Exactly.
I'm like, wait a minute, you
We are
just shot
complicated
someone in the
people,
leg.
multifaceted.
Yeah.
Okay, multifaceted.
But I don't think that Grace like turned on them, or I don't think Grace was anti-black. Like there was a
No,
lot of
no.
sentiment of Grace being, oh well, she just wanted money from the black community, but she didn't really have any bond with them. I was like, she absolutely seemed to have a bond with them. When her and Smoke were going back and forth to haggle out, it made me think, wait a minute. Did Grace teach Smoke, or did Smoke teach Grace, like the little girl outside, how to haggle, like
Yeah.
price
Yeah.
for money?
Absolutely.
Because it paralleled that scene. But I didn't get the sense that Grace was like,
Yeah.
screw these black people, I got to go.
And I
Right.
know because it's this whole time was actually, well, not the whole time, but as we were talking and also during the film, again, I'm from LA, so I was alive during the riots, and all the small stores in our neighborhood were owned by Koreans who didn't live in our neighborhood, and of course we didn't know about the systemic issues around that in terms of ownership and how that and so I'm saying we all know it exists in real life, that there is a systemic thing around who do we give access to,
Yeah.
especially with property, in order to create these like class, racial, social divisions that are artificial, that wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise, with like, whatever. But that as I'm saying what I'm saying about the specificity here, but that this is also something that it points to, and it comes from like a real place that we all have experienced. Because even though, like, I remember I think about the riots where all of those stores burned. People burned those stores down, and even though they knew those store owners, the feeling was like, why do you get to own a store? Why are you in our neighborhood when you live in such and such a place? You don't live in LA, so
Yeah.
it comes from a real place.
Okay, so we will start. Of course, I want to keep talking forever. But a couple of things. A couple of things. One, and then we can talk about it. But I kept thinking about. I've seen memes about this, and I've just been loving. I mean, I've been loving all of it, but specifically because I know Bree. You said, and we've had these conversations before, and you stated how much you love vampires. I wanted to know, and then for anyone else who's watching Interview with the Vampire, by the way, you should be watching Interview
show.
with the Vampire
Good show.
on AMC.
Quality TV.
That's what I'm saying. Listen,
Quality TV.
quality. So I want to know, Bree, if Stack, because we're talking about like one state over, pretty much.
Right.
Would Stack and Louis, do you think they would get along?
Yeah, I think them and their white girlfriends would have a fantastic time on the town. I think they would create a little coven.
Oh my God.
And they would have a great time. But I think Stack is a little, like, Louis is fake rough. I don't think he's rough. I think Stack is rough.
Right,
Like, he's
right,
working
right.
for Capone.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're stealing from the Irish
Tommy
and
gun.
Italians. Like,
Yeah.
I think Louis, like, a little spoiled at the end of, I think it's the last season. He's like telling the other vampires to come get him. And I'm like, you don't really mean that. Like, you
Oh no, he was taking care of him. He was
Lou, it's not that he's not strong and can't hold himself, right?
right.
I think we do get to see Louis as a character who can hold himself, but I think he's also very
You still get that
easily
human.
manipulated.
Yes.
Right? Because
Armand.
Armand, thank you.
Ugh.
That one. Like he plays the timid, the one that's being controlled, right? Like Louis thinks he's controlling Armand, but Armand is controlling Louis the whole time. And the same goes for Lestat. Like he is easily controlled by a pretty face, and that's just a reality of Louis. So I will say that stack may be a little too hard for Louis.
Oh my God.
Like for real.
Yeah.
But in my dream world, it's a
Dream
coven.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I would love that.
Right? Wouldn't it be cute?
Okay. Real. If we can be real quick about this. Okay. I want to also, because we've gotten into a lot of topics, both heavy and not so heavy. Of course, it comes, with the nature of, well, I can't even say a film like this because there is no film like this.
No.
But can we please talk about like the funniest moments for you in this film? For me, I mean, there's many, but we all got to be kind to one another. You ask Cornbread.
Like, what do you walk in? Why can't you walk in?
I think what Mary said, boy, if you don't get the fuck out my face, I love that. I believe your half black grandparent. It was all in there when you said that. Cause
Even with the one drop rule and everything.
Listen.
Nah, Delta Slim was carrying the comedy. When Sammy was going in to check on Stack, he saw them, and then Delta said, "Oh, they busy." Oh, okay. he in there right there.
For that.
Yeah, I love that moment when he was basically like sacrificing himself. This Delta Slam sacrificed himself, and he admitted that Irish beer was so nasty, but he picked it up and he was like, still nasty. I was like, he's about to get eaten alive, and he's just like, terrible. I was like, oh my God, this is so. And I needed that because that was when it was getting real intense. I was like, no,
Yeah.
but I loved how he went out like that.
I'm gonna say the same scene with Cornbread at the door. It was so tense, and Annie's questioning him, and she's like, why you won't just walk in the door, And he tells him, first of all, I don't know why I'm calling you. You just still.
That was the last
I was about to say, smoke this, man. What you talking about?
I have 2 points. So my first one was, of course, when Stack turns into a vampire and Smoke answers the door. He's like, excuse me. He's like, nigga, is that you? Nah, it's Jim Crow. and that scene with that door, I was telling Jackie about this one. I said, that whole scene, I was like, why does this scene seem so familiar? And I realized, I feel like that's supposed to be an homage to Quentin Tarantino's scene in Django Unchained with the Klan scene where they're trying to get the mask and stuff on.
Yeah.
Like that whole comedic relief, and you're just like, bro, like, what are you doing? Get in here.
I can't see nothing in these masks.
Heather, what was the funny moment for you?
I had 2, and it was I don't think this was supposed to be comedy, but at the very beginning, when the native dude, when she had the gun to his head, and he looked past her, he seen the hood, and he was like, "Y'all have a good night." I laughed. Oh, because I was like, they're gonna don't try to help them. And when they just left, I was like, that's right.
Yep. He said, God bless him in his native tongue. He's like, you don't even understand this.
And then the cornbread scene, but when Delta Slim was like, what are we supposed to be doing? Because he seemed so sincere, like, am I missing something? Like, what? There's fucking vampires outside. What is we supposed to be doing here? I thought that whole exchange was for that actor Omar
Miller.
Omar Miller. He is hilarious. I've been ODing on their interviews. He is a whole mess.
Oh my gosh. Katara, did you talk about your funny moment for you?
I thought it was funny when Remick and his posse were leaving, and he's like, "Well, we're gonna walk real slow."
Yes, yes,
Like,
yes.
no, we're not changing their mind.
You know, looking back, like
Oh my god, that whole
Puppy
like
dog.
thing they did with their guitar
Yes.
thing
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
and I was thinking about that when we're talking about the song and how that's supposed to ingratiate them to black people. I'm like, but the way y'all perform it is ridiculous, and the choreography is really lame. But it's so funny. That was hilarious.
DJ Tego. Funny moment.
oh snap, funniest moment. Oh my god. I blanked. I was saying the one where Sammy was doing a check-in on Stack and Mary, and then Delta Slim was sitting there, and he was just like, "Hey, oh, they busy in there?" Oh, but there's another one. Shoot. Low key when Delta Slim was starting to act funny with the garlic. I think that was tense. It was too tense to be funny. It was low key too tense, but I think low key with the garlic scene, it was Perlene acting funny because I think it wasn't supposed to be funny, but everyone was just like, "Stop playing games right now." It's just like the collective, like, what is good? with you?
Just eat it.
I want
Like,
to shove her.
no, for real.
It wasn't the time.
It was not the
Exactly. I'm
time.
like, come on.
Like, for real. Okay, a thing about Pearlie, which I don't know if it was it wasn't intentionally funny. But here's the thing. So for Pearline, for a few people actually in this film, it was definitely 8 o'clock. And like, let's be real, we're all adults.
Ryan Coogler's wife is pregnant right now.
Like, talk about it. So anyway, so after 8 o'clock for Perlene, she gets on stage and tears the house down with Pale Pale Moon, and I'm like,
You feel good after that.
He felt real good.
and I'm sitting there and I'm going,
And he didn't care about her freshening it up.
I'm
She
like,
was here for it.
I'm like, not even 5 minutes ago, girl. You were okay. Like that for me. That was just funny. I just thought it was a funny moment. Like again, not inherently, just thinking about like situationally, and I'm like, huh, okay. Yes.
Got her barking.
Drag it, and also on all fours.
Nah, this is going wild. There's some Looney Tunes.
Okay, some pep in her step. That's it.
Well, he must have did a good job because she damn sure sacrificed herself for that man.
We went on to live a long, happy life. I mean, thank you. That's what
She said, "No, take him, not him." I know. Oh, that was good. He was good.
Nah, I feel so bad. Like, yeah.
It had to be good.
Happy up.
I know Sammy had to be sick seeing Perlene get bit.
Oh, I know.
Like, of course, with the trauma of seeing your families, all that, but it's just like,
Damn.
But I promise you, he had a whole house and kids picked out in his head. He was ready to live a full, happy life.
a whole family.
She was married.
I'm gonna move in with you and your husband.
Yeah, we never found out when she was married for real.
Yo, I don't
People
think
been
so
talking
either.
about that.
I don't think so either.
I don't think her husband was real. I think it was like, nowadays we say, I got a boyfriend. I think she was like, I got a husband. I don't know what you're about yet. And then when she saw what he was about, after that, you saw, she was like, where's Sammy? Where's Sammy? That was her only line for the rest of the movie.
Nah, I'm sorry, but like, where did Sammy get time to go around? Because what do you mean your first response to "I married" is happily?
No, for real.
Like,
As a preacher's son.
There it is.
yeah, like, where you been?
PKs.
Can't put nothing past them.
Like, where were you?
Oh my goodness gracious. Any I wanted to, because of course we didn't talk about Annie.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have
Oh,
something to say
I
about
love
Annie.
Same.
Extended.
Yes,
10-minute extension.
So much to say about her. I wanted more of
Same.
Annie.
Yes.
I wanted
did.
way more hoodoo in this film, and so I go off on my whole little tangents, and that was one of the things that I left the first time I saw the movie leaving the movie going like, where was the magic? Where was the hoodoo at the end? I mean, we got some of it.
We
So
got the mojo
we
bag.
got the mojo bag.
Right.
We have inklings of it, you know, and also I love the whole thing around smoke and smoke around smoke and how
Yeah.
important
Right.
smoke was for Smoke and Annie. But at the end, I just thought that we had that amazing scene on the dance floor where we saw the ancestors, we saw the realms ripped open, and the levels that we got there. At the end, when Remick is basically just like, signing the Lord's Prayer with Sammy at the end, it was just mostly the conventions of vampire lore
Right.
that came in the end. But I'm like, but where was that magic? And I feel like that was something that was held back. I didn't like that Annie died. I don't mind that she died. Fine, but sure, even people have to die. But with her, I feel like she was underused in her knowledge and underused in her power. And we were also set up at the very beginning to even kind of doubt that power with the whole thing with their child. So when Smoke was like, oh, this mojo bag, protected me when I was overseas in Germany and when I was in Chicago, but what did it do to our baby? And her answer, like, I don't know. And I get the faith part in there, but I also feel like it undermined her magic. And so that was, oh man, I wanted more. I wanted more of her. Yeah, that's my rant.
Yeah, I definitely think Annie deserved more screen time. I loved when she was like, "Don't let me turn, like kill me before
Right.
because I'd rather die and be with our child than to live this life." And I think my biggest thing with Annie was seeing. First of all, I thought that woman was beautiful since the moment I first laid eyes on her in Lovecraft. I've been in love with Wumi since then, and the love still carries on. So it really bothers me that so much commentary around that sex scene with her and Smoke.
Oh, what?
It
People,
was
have
weird.
y'all not heard?
He
People
was
saying,
antsy. I
It's
thought
so
she was
weird.
his mother.
they're like,
so
yes,
weird.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not his mom. That was so weird. Like
Oh my
all
God.
over TikTok and Instagram, and it's
Facebook,
and,
yeah.
and it's so bothersome to me because I'm like,
Wow.
not one point did I think that was that
No.
man's mother.
No.
Yeah,
You know?
Excuse me?
it was weird.
So
Yeah.
what? I'm not on that.
And it's like they're not used to seeing
Right.
thicker, dark skinned, tall, broad, but still absolutely gorgeous black women be desirable. And
I mean,
they
when she
just
said your body remembers me.
I think that's when they knew it wasn't his mother.
Mom hasn't forgotten. That's the one. That's the one.
I think that's when they was like, oh, wait a minute. I might have read this a little wrong.
I cannot believe people thought that was his
Yeah.
mom.
Foolish.
That is crazy.
and I'm talking I'm talking black people.
Yeah.
Black
That's
people
I know.
Like,
I
Yeah.
know.
It's disappointing.
The other part of that, I said this on the first episode, is that there was this obsession with his chemistry with Haley versus nobody was really talking about the chemistry he had with Wumi. Is it
Right,
pronounced
right,
Wumi?
right.
So I think, we're programmed to see the light skinned or white woman with the straight hair, the fine hair, the wavy hair with the black man. So to see she was potentially larger than him, I don't know if she was bigger than him, but
No, they're the same height.
okay, same height. So to see again her dark skin, her larger frame, her hair, even her hair, just her wearing it natural. I think it's uncomfortable when you are faced with something you're not used to. We're not used to seeing that. So I'm not saying that the reactions were right, but it makes sense. Like that we're programmed to see certain people, and it probably ruffles some feathers, but that just means we need to do more of it,
Yes.
so
Right.
that we don't have that reaction
And
anymore.
I don't know if it means that we need to do. I don't even because we do it. We've done it, and that's
But it's not mainstream.
It's
Right.
Sure, but I feel like I don't know. I have complicated feelings around representation and how far representation can go because the problems there are so deep that I don't think it has anything to do with. We need to see this over and over and over again for it to be acceptable because there's so many things happening, and I see that, and I'm so disappointed that people thought that. I'm so disappointed, not only because is she beautiful, but because in the dialogue, in their rapport, in them talking, it's so obvious,
Right.
and I'm like, it's interesting
Yeah.
how people are not paying attention because she distinctly talks about their baby, their son.
Right.
What was he talking about? Oh, your brother? Like the smoke and sack happened.
Right.
Like, that makes no sense
But is
at
it
all.
like, do they tune out once the bigger dark skinned woman gets
Right.
on screen?
And that's
Yeah.
must be what's happening, where
Yeah.
there is a cognitive dissonance
Yeah.
with what is actually happening on the screen. And I don't know how much repetition or representation can do to fix that,
Right.
honestly.
That's real.
So
I mean, I want to see it more because I want to see it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I care about.
For sure.
I feel like
For
I
sure.
care about proving
Yes.
this
Yeah.
to people, because they're never going to believe that we are part of the beauty standard. They're never going to put us on
We
that
are,
level.
and also we,
Right,
as
right.
the collective we.
Right, the people who
actually-
believe more in the Eurocentric
Right.
and guiding towards that. So even the kin folk who you don't have to invite to barbecue because they're already there, you still have to critique them too.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think they're ever going to see us on that level. So there's no point in trying to prove it. I want to see that representation for myself.
Okay. All right.
And for younger dark skinned Black women who
Mhm.
are growing up and deserve to see themselves seen as desirable
Yeah.
and loving and able to protect their people. Like I think she really serves such an amazing purpose in that movie.
But I also wanted to mention, I just wanted to say, Perlene was also,
Oh, yeah.
dark skinned, and
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Gorgeous.
Stunning.
So
Yes.
he did a good job with the casting.
I
It's-
think
it's super quick. It's just very interesting, kind of like the discourse that we can have about media and about sinners specifically, and just how many like different like just like bifurcations there are online, which is how people absorb and like talk about things, because it's just completely outlandish that there are some folks who would think like Annie is like their mom.
right.
It's just completely outlandish, and that's not even something that came up to mind and everything like that. And it's just like when it comes to representation and just how people absorb it, like I'm so sorry. What is your name again? I think the one who was saying that representation may not be like repeating it over and over. It's gonna be
Oh,
confusing.
is that me?
No,
Oh,
yeah.
Ernest.
Ernest, yeah. It's just like, what are kind of like the limits of representation? Because I think another part, like what you brought up with Hoodoo, is like Hoodoo representation in the movie was amazing. And it was great to see that root work, and it was great to see that representation of like African rooted spirituality practices. But now we got people on TikTok trying to make their own mojo bag within a closed practice,
no.
which is like, okay, now I'm like, I don't know nothing about that, but that's not something you mess with or just put in making the content. So why is it that like when things are put out into the world like that, we kind of have that response where it's like, no, this is not content. This is like some deep stuff that you mess with, you're gonna have your life ruined, and maybe a lot of other people's lives ruined.
And how
Like-
are we ignoring the themes of the movie that it's like, stop touching what's not yours.
Yeah,
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like they're missing the whole point.
yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
So this is another thing I think is just amazing about this, because I'm in the you can't see me DJ. Wait, what is your name? Sorry, I get DJ
Tego.
Tago. You can't see me. I'm freaking out at people doing it.
No, I saw you. I was like,
okay, you see me, because and that's another thing that I wonder about the film is the power. And I have a bunch of, so both my sides of my family are from Louisiana, grew up in LA, and I've been talking to people about this a lot, that there's a stigma around people who are from Louisiana with voodoo and hoodoo. And my family, one side of the family particularly, is very sensitive to that, where they don't like it. They don't want to claim it. They don't like people assuming things. And so there is this stigma around it. And I know Kugler's family is also from the South. I don't know where they're from, but the hoodoo and all that also has connections in his family. But I also wonder about the stigma, because it felt like he kind of pulled some punches with that. But in pulling the punches, then you also you don't really show the potential of the power. And I'm wondering if he hadn't pulled the punches. I know it wouldn't stop people from doing stuff, but it's also a visceral reaction because of my awareness of certain things but that's something that just comes with knowing. And I think it's really interesting that people, because in my head I'm like, you'll find out. Like, go ahead, play around, and you'll fuck around and find out.
No,
But-
don't play around.
Oh, I know. But it's sort of like but it's sort of like you can't. I think that's also an interesting response to that. And the more you learn about it, or something that you can't control, the reaction of people to that part of the film. So there's a lot of things in there, but I also know that my response to, oh no, don't do it, is because I understand what that means, and I understand the potential of that. And it's interesting that people who don't know, or who aren't aware, or who are being real disrespectful, how they're inspired by this film to explore in some kind of way. And in a way, I'm like, oh,
And I just want to piggyback on that and say that Coogler may have been intentional with holding punches because he didn't want to give away too much information. Black community has a tendency to overshare, so to speak. You see a lot of Black creatives whose dances are being stolen, whose things are being taken because others had their hands on it. They were giving it to them freely, or they have access to it, just like you said, inviting everybody to the barbecue. Just because they can dance don't mean they need to come to the barbecue. So
Amen.
it's okay to keep some things
They
a
can't even dance that
secret.
well.
It's okay. Some of them. It's okay to hold things.
Sorry.
It's okay to hold things close to our chest and have things that are just for us. So it may have been intentional on his part.
yes, yeah. I
Mhm.
totally agree.
I'm gonna have to have. Listen, I think what we need to do is just have this exact group back on a podcast because I have not stopped laughing for a while now. They're on the podcast. Oh my goodness! See, can't take us anywhere. But also
It is what it is.
for real. Okay. Any final thoughts? Any shout outs? Because we're all creatives here. Where people can follow you. And like I said, any final thoughts on the film? Ernez, we'll start with you.
Oh man. Okay. I think I got everything else out that I wanted to say, and definitely Annie. Annie has been an inspiration to me, being someone who comes from a family that's a very complicated history around the traditions of Southern Louisiana specifically, and how it's a part of how we live, but then there's no acknowledgement of what it actually is and where it actually comes from. And so there's so many things so many memories that were brought up from growing up, because I grew up in LA, but I spent my summers in Louisiana, and things that I learned there and how we were raised in LA. It's just that she really has inspired me to think more about it, to learn more about it. And then do I plug myself?
Yeah,
Is that-
absolutely,
Okay, all right.
absolutely, absolutely.
So yes, so I if people are interested, I'm on Instagram. I have a private account, but I will allow you to follow me if you see me. But on all socials, I'm at Ernez, HERNEASE, which is actually like an old Cajun name. Ernez, and I have a website, ernezdavis.com. Where you can follow me there, and also I'm an assistant curator at VSW Visual Studies Workshop in Rochester, which is an amazing organization, and you can follow us there at vsw.org and Visual Studies Workshop on all socials. So, yeah.
Katira.
Yes, I just want to say I really appreciated the dichotomy of the movie, and that Coogler embraces secular and church, good and evil, because we are both. We have a spiritual component and we have a worldly component, and there's a lot of history behind why the worldly is deemed evil or bad. There are a lot of different, misconceptions about that, but I appreciate that he folds that in and doesn't ignore it or try to make us feel bad because there's certain things that we do that might not be ethical or lawful or things like that. So that was really a huge takeaway, just seeing, all elements and not just the good side. As far as myself, I am on Instagram under my name, Katira Poland. My business is Love for Words, editing and copywriting. My website is love4words.com. You're welcome to subscribe if you're interested in more editing tips, writing, publishing, etc. And then on Monday, we have the In This Moment on May 19th at George Eastman. I was the essayist for Christopher Cole's and ASL interpreter. So please do come out and join us on Monday at 6:30.
Are we all in this moment, people, at the table?
Shout out to
Yes.
Bree.
All right. Brain went blank. Was sitting here waiting. You can. So, all right. So you can follow me on Instagram, Sunny Bree with 2 U's. I am a model, a writer, as well as communications professional. I also do some social media work, and I'm always down to collaborate and do fun things like this and just be in community with people. So Jackie would happily come back, but also always looking to collab with everyone. I had another sentence in my head, but it's gone now. So, so thank you so much. Oh, it was about the movie.
Yeah. Final
Like Katira said, I think the complexities, showing the complexities of the people, and that like bringing up that Grace's name is Grace, and really like that's the one thing we don't give ourselves, and maybe we should. I should extend some to Grace. y'all arguments were good, and I really just enjoyed seeing both sides of people and being able to appreciate them. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. Coco Radio.
No, not yet.
Thank you. Me and this mic, man. My final thoughts is thank you, Ryan Coogler, for literally telling everybody to get the fuck up. I especially to the youth, like for me, my younger self is like, thank you, like thank you, especially because I feel like creative writing is about to be a popular course. Just you wait.
So many.
It's about to be a very
definitely
popular
inspired
course
people.
for sure. And thank you, because between him and Kendrick, and I'll even say Donald Glover, because him and Donald both have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So with their shows and movies and stuff. But thank you for bringing back thinking and conscious thinking and conversation, because I feel like this movie really inspired a lot of people to talk.
Yeah.
Like telling, and I love that everybody had different perspectives. I think that was what was supposed to happen, was for us to talk about our perspectives, like why should we extend grace to grace, or why we should, and it's okay because that's your experience with that. And I am so thankful that he really definitely brought that back to us for sure. You can follow me at by Coco Ray on all social media platforms.
Talk about the fundraiser.
I'm currently, I appreciate you. Right now, I'm currently campaigning a fundraiser to help with my studio space, The Perp, with sustainable resources and accessibility for creative artists and creatives, as well as yoga instructors, because I just became a 200-hour yoga instructor.
That's awesome.
So I'm all about creating space and just like Ryan, creating conversation and healing, because I said this is the last thing I said. I feel like this movie broke a spell. That's what I felt. I felt like after this movie, I was like, why am I so fixated on this movie? I'm like, I think this motherfucker broke a spell. He really did. So thank you.
Yes. All right. Aisha, final thoughts. Where can we find you?
I think I'll just end it off by saying I really did enjoy the movie. I'm still thinking about it constantly. It's top of my brain. Listen to the soundtrack all the time. And I'm really happy Ryan Coogler made this movie, because I feel like maybe somebody said it earlier. I feel like when it comes to movies created by like Black people, whether it's the screenwriting or the just directing in general, it follows one story. It's either slavery or it's a story where, I'll just say Tyler Perry type stuff.
Yeah.
And
By the way,
glad
when
you
I
did
say I'm
something
your
different.
biggest hater.
Thank you.
Yeah. When I say your biggest hater. Sorry, continue, Aisha. You can keep going.
But I remember I used to talk to people about this all the time. I'm like, why don't we ever go into like sci-fi or horror more, or all these other type of genres? So I'm really happy that Ryan's doing it, because I feel like we could do such a great job in those areas. As far as social media, I am more of an observer. I don't post much, so I'm sorry.
Heather, final thoughts on where we can find you.
My final thoughts are, I love this movie. The lump sum message I got from it was, even in your imperfections, you deserve life. You deserve life, and whatever that is to you. You don't have to be perfect to get it. You don't have to be perfect to deserve it. You're here. You deserve to live a life how you want to live a life. None of these people in the movie at this point got to really live the life that they deserve to have. And that was the freedom that I took away that they lacked, because they didn't understand that I deserve life how I want it to be. Stack didn't have that choice. Smoke didn't have that choice. Annie didn't. And so it was a good reminder that we're full of life and we need to live life regardless of how imperfect we are. And don't find me, but I have a page on Facebook called Women Uplifting Women. And it's just a page because about 12 or 14 years ago, I was very sick of the whole narrative that women can't get along. And so I made the page to try to just speak positivity into women, from women, just a positive place where no cattiness, just women who uplift each other. And that is on Facebook. Oh, and I'm working on a Makia documentary, which there's a poet named Ty Grael. He wrote this poem called A Black Woman's Smile, and he gave me permission to use it. And so it's a documentary called Angry Black Woman, and it just basically is an outline of Black women from the time they got here in this country as enslaved Africans to today, and why that angry Black woman trope is so dangerous and hurtful to us as a group.
Gosh, where can we follow that along? Wow.
Oh, I don't know, because I didn't make anything for that.
You have creatives. You have a few filmmakers on here. Yes, Heather. Let's talk offline for real. About,
Okay,
yes.
absolutely.
Anywhere else that people can follow you?
No.
No, not even on.
I said, no, I have an IG. I have an Instagram. Hold on. I have an Instagram, and it is, hold on. I'm on it now.
She's finding it.
It's JL Vanksbell _127.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will put that. I'll put all of this in the show notes for people to go back and
Yeah.
follow everyone. Yes, absolutely. And last but certainly not least, DJ Tego. Final
Hello.
thoughts on where we can find you.
Yeah, so I'll start off with where you can find me. You can find me at DJ to the TA to the GOE everywhere. Pretty straightforward. I try to keep it up on Instagram and TikTok. But yeah, Sinners, I think, is definitely a movie that Coco, you said it perfectly, actually. It broke a spell. I think Sinners absolutely broke a spell because it got us to focus on something, especially in an economy and an ecosystem where we're constantly bombarded with 24/7 just anti-black stuff, like classist stuff, just all the stuff that makes us feel bad and hate. It just messes with our self-image, like how we perceive and work with each other. Sinners was a movie that truly had us united on one, ranting about a good movie, but also had us thinking. Always has us using our brains, always had us reading, always had us going back into the history and connecting with our past, our present, so we can actually create the future that we want to see. We're seeing the work of someone who loves creation. We're seeing someone who wants to work to create something for his community. And the main message of it was, do not get distracted. Do not let this temptation and these things that seek to destroy us in. Build something for your people. Even if you don't see the end results of it, take the time, because that investment is going to inspire other people later on. Because how many people, even if we are caught back up in the spell, because the discourse cycle, I think CIA put us into a real blitz right now. There's a lot going on right now. And it's just like, dude, what happened? But for the people who have managed to keep the eye on the ball, how many people have been inspired to like, no, we got to focus on creating something for our people? And how many more spells will be broken in the course of that work? Let's focus up. Let's build. Let's make sure that we are being us, because we're people of the drums. We're people of music. We're people of rhythm. We're people of art. We're people of such beautiful things. And we live in a world that wants that uniformity of white supremacy to destroy all that. And it's like, we can say no as long as we're working together in community and keeping up with each other. We don't have to succumb to it. We just have to keep on being us and working on it together. So long-winded thing short, this was amazing. Let's just keep on creating beautiful art for our people and keep it going.
Awesome. And I think that is a great note to end on. I want to thank all of our guests, both here in studio and virtually, for joining us. Anyone who also tuned into the live, I really appreciate, again, going back to the guests here for a second, just giving y'all flowers. You brought so much energy, so much insight, so much encouragement. It's really just been a joy to be among all of you. So thank you so much for that. And also to our listeners, we will put again all of the info where you can find all of our amazing guests in the show notes. So when we do that, please go find them. Thank you all for your support of Our Voices Project and our Representation in Cinema podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky, and at ourvoicesproject.com for more information about what we do. Sign up for our newsletter there, too, to be the first to get notifications about new podcast episodes and new projects. You can listen to this episode and others under Representation in Cinema on any of the platforms listed on our website. So that's Spotify, Apple Podcast. And you can also go to listen on our website at ourvoicesproject.com/podcast. This has been Jackie McGriff, your host on this episode of Representation in Cinema of Our Voices Project. As always, thank you again for listening.
This has been a presentation of the Lunchable Podcast Network.
Hey.
Yay! That was so great.
Whoop, whoop.
We gotta get a picture of everybody.
All right, thanks everybody who's on the stream, and
They can.
are you gonna grab
Okay.
that?
Yeah, I need to grab a picture. All right, everyone who's joining in virtual. Can they hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, let me turn you back on.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi. Okay. Everyone who's on virtually. All right. I'm going to take a photo. Okay. All right. So smiles, or if you don't like smiling, that's fine too. I don't like to force people to smile. Okay. Ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank y'all again so much. I'm going to have y'all back. Obviously on the podcast. This was way too much fun.
Agreed.